Yo, did the US just dump 69,000 Bitcoin 11 days before Trump takes over office in the US? The DOJ has officially allowed the release of 69,000 Bitcoin, which equates to $6.5 billion. Don't you think the timing of this is really coincidental? Really big coincidence. Literally weeks before Trump takes office, we all know how the incoming Trump administration feels about Bitcoin. Donald Trump's son, Eric Trump, historic speech, Bitcoin Mina, Trump appointing pro-Bitcoin positions all over his cabinet. There's a lot of rumors and speculation that what we want to shed on light today. So let's get right into explaining what really happened on today's show. I'm going to bring up my legendary co-host, my Optimus Fields, who's in the co-host seat today. Anyways, just jump straight into it, man. This was on purpose, Opti. Let's just take away all doubt. This was on purpose. This was to sabotage the incoming administration. We know their plans for a strategic Bitcoin reserve. We saw the pictures of Michael Saylor at Mar-a-Lago talking with Eric Trump. I'm sure that Michael Saylor met with the president. Of course, you have Sachs coming in. You have Howard Lupnick, who was just on Anthony Pompliano's podcast talking about buying tens of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin, buying hundreds of millions of dollars worth of Bitcoin. He just got appointed head of commerce. I mean, like, obviously, like,
and Gensler's leaving.
Yeah, and Gensler's leaving. And then you guys remember the last 4 years, like, our industry was attacked, which essentially forced our industry to, get into the political discussion, right? So this is 100%, no doubt in my mind, an attempt to sabotage this whole Bitcoin, strategic Bitcoin reserve thing in the United States. Anyways, here's an article. The article is from Decrypt. U.S. court greenlights sale of $6.5 billion in seized Silk Road Bitcoin. The U.S. government has secured final approval in the Northern District of California to liquidate crypto's largest ever federal seizure, signaling the closure of a complex 4-year legal battle over billions in Bitcoin tied to the infamous Silk Road marketplace. Chief U.S. District Judge Richard Seaberg denied a motion to block the forfeiture of 69,370 Bitcoin, clearing the Department of Justice to sell the $6.5 billion in assets, according to a court document filed December 30th. A couple thoughts here. Same as the thing with Germany. Germany sold 50,000 or roughly $50,000, 50,000 Bitcoin when Bitcoin was at like 60 or 70K. They got absolutely wrecked. And the thing that like really interests me the most is they're selling something that has absolute scarcity. They just can't create more of it for something they can create out of thin air. That makes no sense whatsoever. But I don't think it's supposed to make sense. They have to continue the system. They have to legitimize the system. And the best way to legitimize the system is say, you know what? This Bitcoin thing is worthless. We have to sell it for this fiat because the fiat is what actually matters, right? Or at least that's what they're trying to signal. I also think that it's quite a coincidence that, again, this is the year after the halving, which in a historical context tends to be the best year for Bitcoin. The year after the halving is the year of the parabolas. And just like the bull market of 2021, when the Chinese Communist Party banned Bitcoin mining, I believe it cut the last bull market short. Isn't it a coincidence that, again, the Biden administration, like 11 days until they're out of office, out of power, is trying to sabotage one of Trump's, key running points? Like it's ludicrous. It's absolutely hilarious. And look, whoever thought, because we got a lot of crap for it at Simply Bitcoin when we decided to essentially say, you know what, it's probably a good idea that Trump wins because his party is taking a pro-Bitcoin stance. His administration is taking a pro-Bitcoin stance as well. We didn't get into the other political issues because that's not that type of show. But I mean, it would have been terrible, I think, if this current administration got more years in office. I think our industry would have been in real trouble. And I think this is great evidence of that, right? It goes on to say, Judge Seaborg is known for high-profile cases. He recently rejected arguments that Google under Alphabet adequately disclosed how it tracked user activity. The tech giant now faces a possible trial in August. It's unclear why the document relating to the seized Bitcoin has surfaced this week. I mean, total coincidence again. All of this is coincidences. None of this is none of this is by chance. None of this is on purpose. It's all coincidence. Like the 30% Bitcoin mining tax. Operation Choke Point 2.0, the articles that were released by the legacy media basically saying that Bitcoin was used for money laundering, even though we know that the vast majority of illicit finance is done within the traditional financial system. All of that is a coincidence, of course. It's all coincidence. It goes on to say the development confirms prior reporting in October last year when it appeared the U.S. government was free to sell the seized Bitcoin from a Silk Road affiliated wallet. Now, again, I don't know if you guys remember, but one of the key talking points that Trump said in his historic keynote at the Nashville Bitcoin conference is that he promised that if he were to get elected, he was still running for office at that point, he wouldn't sell any Bitcoin that the U.S. government had, right? So again, 11 days before he's being sworn in, the DOJ just happens to drop this massive bombshell. Like, come on now. Come on. Anyways, here is Joe Burnett, great content creator. I believe he's with the company Unchained. And here's British Hodl. I recently just recorded a podcast with British Hodl, by the way. That should be dropping in about a week or so. British Hodl says, we have people selling Bitcoin and we're on the verge of 20 strategic Bitcoin reserves after USA hits the go button. It's truly remarkable how frail people's, I can't say that. We are quite possibly one domino away from hyper Bitcoinization. The reason that I wanted to bring that up, again, I think they're trying to stop the momentum. There's really no other explanation for that, right? We know how Gary Gensler feels about Bitcoin. We know how the current DOJ and the Treasury Department feel about the industry. We know how much pressure they put on banks to essentially isolate them from the traditional financial system. There's leaked documents that have come out that have literally shown that there is pressure from the government being put on banks to essentially not bank the crypto and Bitcoin industry, which of course forced our industry to become part of the donor class in Washington, D.C. I don't think we would have done so if we weren't forced to do so. So, it's funny how all this works, vengeful until the very moment they leave office, which is just, it's fitting. I'm glad we're turning the page. I really hope that over the next 2 to 4 years, Bitcoin adoption in the United States accelerates to a point where it becomes a nonpartisan issue. Because the last thing that I want to happen is whether there's a certain political party in office, it's good for Bitcoin. And if there's another political party in office, it's bad for Bitcoin. And then it just becomes this pendulum. I think that would be terrible for the industry. I think Bitcoin is for everyone. It doesn't matter what your ideological beliefs are. If you're on the right, it protects your sovereignty. It protects, your ability to, move freely with your wealth. If you're on the left, it's the most inclusive, equitable money the world has ever seen. It protects the lower and middle classes from the ravages of inflation. This is not a partisan issue. So I hope that over the next 2 to 4 years, people like Elizabeth Warren can't run on the platform of I'm building an anti-crypto army, because the fact is that Bitcoin is for everyone. I think the people that stand the most to lose from Bitcoin are politicians that have taken advantage of the money printer. I think it boils down to that. So I think, this is a very slimy move. I think that this could have definitely played into the recent price volatility that we had in Bitcoin, especially to the downside. We fell from like 102,000 to 92,000 or 91,000. So yeah, I mean, this is kind of snaky. This is kind of slimy, Opti. I'm not gonna lie. Like right until the way out, they're just like, you know what? They just flipped everyone off, and they're like, we're not gonna just give over the keys. We're gonna fight all the way. We're gonna fight all the way to the very end. And there's some rumors also that they've apparently already sold that Bitcoin. So I don't know if that's true, but I mean, that could explain why we still haven't started pumping yet. Opti, what's your take?
Yeah, well, jumping off that last point, I did just see Arkham Intelligence essentially drop a meme that says they're saying the U.S. government has sold that Bitcoin. But if you look on chain, it's allegedly still there. Though there are a lot of rumors going on right now that essentially that Bitcoin has already been sold, which I think would kind of explain the reason why the price is coming back down to 93K right now. And so, these are all rumors and speculations right now. Obviously, I think everyone's watching this. This is a huge news story as far as I'm concerned. Though, I think the really big tell here is that this announcement came out December 30th. Maybe it's because it was the New Year's and it kind of got swept under the rug, giving them kind of the benefit of the doubt. The interesting part is, why is it coming out now? Obviously, 11 days before Trump gets into office, we're hearing this news come out. And it really does feel like the final, FU from the Biden administration to the American people, when in reality, it's like it is the best course of action here to be stacking Bitcoin for, I would argue, America in general. Though, kind of pulling back, I was talking with Sal, Nico, our boy out there. So shouts out to Sal. I know he listens on the podcast every day. And I have been kind of becoming a little more conflicted on this Bitcoin SBR news, considering how they got that Bitcoin. Most of that Bitcoin is from the Silk Road confiscation here. So, first they steal it and then they sell it. Like, what's new? Same story as we've been hearing before. And then kind of going further, like, as much as I do want an SBR, the technicalities of rolling over the Silk Road Bitcoin into the strategic Bitcoin reserve and the U.S. government kind of profiting off of it, it does make me feel a little icky here. But, if the U.S. government does sell that Bitcoin, this might be the best news for 2025. It's like, hey, they sell that 200,000 Bitcoin, they get a discount for the price, and then they have to buy Bitcoin back. If Trump comes in, they have to buy all that Bitcoin back essentially on spot markets, which means that's a lot of buying pressure. That sounds like numbers going to go up. So I don't know. It is very interesting to watch. And I think, obviously we don't want to get into speculations. We don't want to turn into simply TMZ here. But the rumors about them actually selling all that Bitcoin is very interesting as far as I'm thinking. It's like, that is an interesting story. Of course, it's all speculation here, but it would kind of line up with a lot of the things we've seen come out of the Biden administration. We've known a lot of the people, the talking heads on the left, have acknowledged the fact that fighting the Bitcoin or quote unquote crypto industry was a really bad move. And they had to kind of keep the public optics out there that, oh, wait, we're not actually fighting you. And so I think it would be a huge news story if we come to find out that actually they've sold all of that Bitcoin, and all of that pandering we saw from Kamala about, hey, we're pro Bitcoin here, we're not trying to fight the industry anymore. Like, would we be surprised? No, but I think that would be a huge revelation for a lot of people, where publicly they're saying, oh, we're going to embrace the Bitcoin industry, and then privately they're selling all of this Bitcoin on the back end. So I think that would also be an incredibly huge news story. But the fact that the DOJ is approving the sale of this Bitcoin, on the one hand, it sounds like a old story here, new boss, same story. But I don't know. I'm kind of feeling okay with the U.S. government having to buy Bitcoin on the spot market. They have to get Bitcoin like everyone else. You have to buy it. So, hey, I don't know. I'm a little conflicted here because, I don't want them to transfer all that stolen Silk Road Bitcoin into a way to pay off their national debt. but I'm also like, I guess cheap sats for us. We get it on discount. Is this just a classic FUD playbook where, they're trying to keep the price under 100K, sell all of that Bitcoin, give a big middle finger to the Trump administration if they do pull the trigger on the SBR. So, man, it's very interesting. 2025 is looking like a crazy year already.
100%. And another thing too, like you have to understand the symbolism here, right? The symbolism is basically saying, Trump got a mandate from the American people. If anyone's not well versed in American politics, the Republican Party usually never wins the popular vote. Trump won the popular vote. He won the House and he won the Senate. And essentially, even though that was a clear message from the American people that refuted Biden's policies, up until the very last moment, he's basically saying, I don't care what you guys think. I'm going to do this anyways. And I'll tell you what, the probability of this SBR executive order going through just went up by 5. Because if you think this is going to stop Trump, from getting an SBR in just because they're dumping Bitcoin right before he goes into office, I mean, this is emboldening him more than anything. He just went on TV yesterday and said he's going to rename the Gulf of Mexico to Gulf of America. He just said he was going to buy Greenland, and he's calling Canada the 51st state. Like, do you think this is going to stop, the plans that he had? It's going to embolden him more than anything. And another thing also, if you guys are not well versed in American politics, this is his second term. He doesn't need to run for office again. And what tends to happen with American presidents on their second term is that they go a little bit harder in the paint because they realize, like, this is my last, I can't run for president anymore, right? So yeah, I mean, I think this is going to backfire. We're going to confirm if this is real news. I think this so-called, release of this news was symbolic. I think it was on purpose. And I think it was an attempt to sabotage this momentum that the Bitcoin movement is picking up, specifically with the donor class, specifically in Washington, D.C. It's entrenching itself within the traditional financial system, whether that's Michael Saylor, Larry Fink, of course, the official Republican Party platform. Yeah, I mean, it's crazy. And this also tells me too, guys, that we're winning because they wouldn't have to do this unless they feared it, right? But what is it that they fear? I think I know what it is they fear. I think it is that, look, if Bitcoin proves to be a superior store of value, if Bitcoin proves to be a solution to a lot of the government's, financial problems, I mean, I think that puts a lot of people out of a job. I think that gets a lot of people asking questions about the fiat money printer. I think that gets a lot of people asking questions about the current system, which a lot of these politicians in Washington, D.C. benefit from. So I think that's really what it's about. But I think that this is just another example of us winning because they wouldn't do this if we weren't winning. So anyways, we'll see what happens. We'll stay on top of it. We'll have an update for you guys.
Yeah,
he's
Nico,
gonna buy even if they sell this 69,000, which I think the number is hilarious. Even if they sell this $69,000 Bitcoin, I think Trump's just gonna buy it back up. My opinion.
Yeah, Nico. On that last point, I think that's a huge point to kind of stress here. Is the fact that they are so concerned with Bitcoin right now just goes to show that they understand the stakes at hand. And we've been saying that for a long time, that like the people in power aren't naive or stupid. They understand what is going on. And they, as we've shown last year with Operation Choke Point 2.0 and all the stuff that came out, they have actively tried to stop the adoption of Bitcoin. And I think this might be, one last attempt to kind of add more FUD into the Bitcoin space and scare away normies from buying Bitcoin. So obviously it's going to backfire, but I think it's very important to remember, like, Bitcoin is an important movement right now, and more people holding Bitcoin really kind of, dismantles all the power going on right now. And things are changing. The times are changing right now. And you guys are on the front lines. Every single one of you guys that are holding Bitcoin, hanging out in the chat. And just us talking about this, it's not just about Nico and I talking about this. It's about everyone in the chat having these conversations with their friends and family. And who knows how big this movement can get if we are all communicating this final message. It's like, look, they're actively working against you, and here's all the data for it. Hit people in their fields, and I think we really are winning really hard. Being unburdened. What was it? Unburdened by what has been, or whatever, whatever it was. Anyways, let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Guys, if you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. Help us break 150 to 200 likes within the first 30 minutes of the show. We're about to break 100 likes on YouTube alone. There's almost 1,500 of you guys watching live between YouTube, Rumble, and X. If you guys are enjoying the show so far, make sure to smash that like button. All right, everybody, before we jump into the show, I do want to give a shout out to Simply Bitcoin's lead sponsor, the best place to build your automatic self-custody Bitcoin stack, bitcoinwell.com. Enable your independence with the fastest and safest way to buy Bitcoin on-chain or via the Lightning Network in Canada or the USA. To get started, you put in your email address here. It takes 2 to 5 minutes to get signed up, and bada bing, bada boom, you're ready to buy Bitcoin. What makes Bitcoin Well different is that it's a completely non-custodial platform. What does that mean? That means that when you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, as soon as the funds clear, it goes straight to your self-custody Bitcoin wallet address. It doesn't even give you the ability to leave your Bitcoin on the exchange, which perfectly aligns with the Simply Bitcoin ethos of the separation of money and state. Also, check out their Bitcoin Well Infinite product. It's a white glove service tailored for people who are trying to buy $50,000 worth of Bitcoin or more. Are you tired of dealing with that finicky Coinbase UI? Are you tired of dealing with those support emails that take days, hours, years to get back to you? You actually want to deal with the real human being that you can call, that you can text anytime you want when you want to buy or sell Bitcoin. You got to check out Bitcoin Well Infinite. To get started, go to bitcoinwell.com/OTC. Also, every time you buy Bitcoin on Bitcoin Well, you earn something called Bitcoin Well points, and you could use those points towards the Bitcoin Wishing Well contest, which we're doing live for you guys right now. First person to scan the QR code has won 210 sats. Yesterday's winner won 21,000 sats, or $21. You win every time you toss a coin into the Wishing Well. And you have an opportunity to win up to 1 million Satoshis. That's right, 1 million Satoshis. Use promo code SIMPLYBTC. Again, SIMPLYBTC to sign up to bitcoinwell.com today, and you get 3 tosses into the Bitcoin Wishing Well. All right, everybody, let's hit the numbers. We have tons to talk about. Let's check it out. I want to tell you guys about our sponsor, Stampseed. Is your Bitcoin in cold storage really secure? Are your seed words really secure? Stampseed's do-it-yourself kit has everything you'll need to hammer your seed words into commercial-grade titanium plates instead of writing them down on paper. Don't do that. Paper sucks. You want to literally stamp your seed into this plate of titanium. Your words are actually stamped into the metal plate with this hammer. So once your words are in, they aren't going anywhere. No risk of the plate breaking apart and your pieces falling everywhere. Titanium stamp seeds will survive nearly triple the heat produced by a house fire. They are also crush-proof, waterproof, non-corrosive, and most importantly, because this is generational wealth, time-proof. All things that paper is not, allowing you to hodl your Bitcoin for the long haul. I mean, here is the plate that they crushed. They put in water, they put a blowtorch to it, and as you can see, the words have survived. Stamp your seed on Stampseed. And you can use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on their store. All right, everybody. Guys, you want to properly take care of your generational wealth. Don't write down your seed words on paper. literally stamp them onto titanium using the Stamp Seed kit. Head over to stampseed.com today. Use promo code SIMPLY to get 15% off anything on the stampseed.com store. At the time of recording, the Bitcoin price is 92,370. Block height, 878,509. Sats per dollar, 1,083. Market cap, 1.83 trillion. Bitcoin versus gold market cap, 9.84%. Percentage issued, 94.32%. Decline from all-time high, negative 14.7%. Realized monetary inflation, 1.09%. In the grand scheme of things, we are just getting started. Now, some very interesting things. Also, shout out to Danny for taking over the What Bitcoin Did podcast from Peter McCormack. Shout out to Peter McCormack. I believe he's continuing his podcast. He changed it to the Peter McCormack Show. The best of luck to him. Great content creator. But congratulations to Danny for taking over the What Bitcoin Did podcast, a very popular podcast in Bitcoin. Seems like he had Odell on recently, and Odell was talking about essentially how if Bitcoin were to perform similarly to the 2016 cycle, the price would trade near $2 million per coin. Now, a couple things here before I play you guys the clip. It's about a 2.5 minute clip. But one of the things that I've been saying for a while now is we as a community have forgotten what a blow off top cycle feels like. The last time we've had one was in 2017. 2017. That's a long effing time from now. That was a long time ago. That was 8 years ago. Oh my God, I've been doing this for almost a decade. We don't even know what a blow off top feels like. 2021 was like, it was a letdown. We didn't. Okay. So the reason I'm saying this is we all have PTSD. We don't know what that feels like. And the reason that I'm saying all of this is because we don't know what that feels like. No one's expecting it. So when I'm seeing the general consensus for this cycle, like the general consensus for last cycle was 100K guaranteed. That was guaranteed last cycle. Never happened. The general consensus this cycle is 120K, 150K, 200K. That's it. Wrap it up. Law of big numbers. It's over. But what I'm seeing is, you know what the return of Bitcoin was in 2016? It was like 130%. You know what the return of Bitcoin was in 2024? 130%. You get where I'm going with this? So you know what the return was in 2017? It like 20x'd, like 2,000%. So I'm not saying it's going to do the same. I'm not saying that. But if it did, 20x times 100,000 is $2 million. I'm not saying that's going to happen. I would be happy with a 5x. That would be incredible. But anyways, I'll play you guys the clip from Odell, and then me and Opti will talk about it. Let's check it out.
If you're going to say super cycle, right, we have 3 cycles that we can compare against. Mm-hmm. We have the 2012 cycle, the 2016 cycle, and the 2020 cycle. Now, the 2020 cycle, I think, was artificially suppressed and broken because of FTX, Celsius, Grayscale, Barry Silbert, all the different paper Bitcoin games that were played out and then blew up. So it didn't go as high as it would and went lower than it would have in the bear. So if you go and then you compare it to the 2016 halving cycle, right? And why are there cycles? There's cycles because every 4 years on average, Bitcoin has this pre-planned supply shock, but because people are retarded, it's not priced in. Like at some point, you'd expect all future halvings to be priced in, but we're still far away from that. So if you compare it to the 2016 cycle, if it was exactly the same top and bottom of the 2016 cycle, you're talking roughly 2 million Bitcoin top, 400,000 Bitcoin bottom. Now, I think like some people without thinking about the math would be like, oh my God, that's a super cycle. That's insane. Like, how did we pump that much? No, that's just doing what we did in 2016. Yeah. So I think you would have to see, for it to be definitionally considered a super cycle, you'd have to see it blow past $2 million. I don't think there's many people that are calling for that right now. I would love to see that. I'd be cool with seeing that. But what I expect here is we'll see a slightly amplified traditional cycle because of nation state FOMO, because of ETFs, because of all this new money that has been unlocked. we will see a cycle that probably would have been amplified if you didn't factor in that new demand compared to not factoring that new demand. But I still expect at some point an 80% drawdown where everyone gets wrecked. And when that'll happen, I don't know when that'll happen. It'll happen when we're all incredibly bullish and we think it's not going to happen. And the important contrast, I think, with gold is like gold is, bowling with bumpers. Like there's circuit breakers, like it's a completely controlled market. Like Bitcoin is the closest thing to a free market humanity's ever seen. And humans are inherently volatile and we panic and we do all this crazy shit. We do degenerate shit. All the suits are going to do crazy degenerate stuff that we can't even imagine. Like we're already seeing the early innings of it. Vivek is launching an ETF that buys Bitcoin bonds, the bonds that are then lent to MicroStrategy, so MicroStrategy can buy Bitcoin, while Bitwise is making an ETF that buys the Bitcoin company, buys the companies that buys the Bitcoin, and they're going to do all this different stuff on top of all that stuff and collect fees and everything. So the degeneracy is going to be ridiculous. There's no circuit breakers. People will panic, and we'll probably have another 80% drawdown at some point. And I would say that would also break the definition of supercycle, which is like we wouldn't have like a traditional bear market-ish type of scenario.
By the way, if you know how to read between Matt's lines, that sounded a lot to me like he was calling for a $3 million Bitcoin price.
No price predictions.
Dude, everyone can't help themselves, but to talk about it. But I mean, I agree with Matt 100%. I think, Bitcoin tends to do the exact opposite of what everyone expects. Everyone, I think, is expecting it to the downside. We're already 10 days into the year, and let's just say, like, I'm not that happy. It's been pretty lame. I think we broke 100K once already. But yeah, I mean, I think his reasoning behind it was on point. I mean, look, you have nation state FOMO, you have institutional FOMO, you have the positive regulatory environment with the Trump administration coming in. You see how the current administration is so scared of that, and they're trying to sabotage it with trying to sell $69,000 Bitcoin right 11 days before Trump goes into office. I mean, yeah, you have a perfect situation for an explosive blow off top scenario. And again, we have not experienced one since 2017. So it's been a very, very long time. And because we have not experienced one since 2017, I think people forgot or forget what that truly feels like. So I'm very excited for it. Now, in regards to the 80% correction, Bitcoin's done this so many times. But one of the things that I think a lot of us agree on, we all have different reasons as to why we believe 2020 and 2021 didn't perform the way it did. But it seems like the general consensus in the community was that specific cycle was a letdown. That specific cycle didn't perform the way that we all expected it to perform. And I think that this cycle, it looks like its current trajectory looks like it's going to be amazing. And again, because it hasn't happened for so long, I think not that many people are expecting it. Like not that many people remember what that feels like, nor are they expecting it. And you have the right properties in place, the right environment in place on the regulatory level, on a nation state level, for it to be absolutely explosive. So I do agree with Odell there. Now, will we hit $2 million per coin? I mean, that sounds absurd. But if I told you in January of 2017, when the price of Bitcoin just broke 1,000, that at the end of the year, it was going to be at $20,000, you would have given me the same response. You would have been like, you're crazy. That's absurd. So I don't know where Bitcoin's going to end up at the end of the year. But like, look, a 5X from the top or a 3X from the top is $300,000, $500,000 Bitcoin. That's not a lot in Bitcoin terms. And everyone has to remember, in a historic sense, Bitcoin tends to perform the best the year after the halving. And that year is this year. That year is 2025. Opti, straight up your alley, bro. Hopium straight in the morning. coming from Odell himself. Odell tends to be, very reserved when it comes to price speculation and all that stuff. But I think his logic is very sound and how he got to those conclusions. What do you think?
Yeah, well, first of all, shouts out to American Hodl, because I also was reading between the lines, and it does sound like Odell was saying $3 million Bitcoin. No, that yeah, man, I'm the reigning bulltard on the show, and I've been saying something very similar as Matt Odell for, I don't even know, probably the majority of last year. And we dove into all of what we thought were the reasons, whether it was the China mining ban, whether it was like what Odell was saying with, FTX, Celsius, BlockFi, all of that fake Bitcoin, paper Bitcoin being sold, which was artificially suppressing the price. And this is why we probably had a lackluster bull run in 2021. And I've been saying for a long time that to me, it feels like we are going to get like a double pent up demand now with this next bull run, potentially this year. And, as much as I do like the super cycle meme, I'm still kind of like, I don't think we're there yet, but if what Odell is saying does play out, we go to something ridiculous like $2 million per coin for a split second, and then the bear market comes down to like whatever, 400K or something per coin, whatever the maths is, like I am okay with that cycle playing out. And it really is looking in the past just a normal Bitcoin cycle. And so I'm also kind of in the camp that I think the halving cycles are still in play. And I think we are going to see an incredible blow off top, especially considering all of the demand that we're seeing. 2024 was a foundational year where institutional capital is able to come into Bitcoin. Now with everything, and we're going to cover some of this stuff right now in the news segment, with all the new ruling and regulation that is potentially on the horizon and already in place, it does seem like we're going to get a lot of capital get injected into the Bitcoin market just itself. And to me, that just means, we'll probably get like a double blow off top, which maybe the price is going to run to an extraordinary price here. And, as a Bitcoiner, you forget how it feels to see the Bitcoin price run. And like Odell was saying, when the price does start running and you start to, essentially price your net worth in like yachts and houses and supercars, that's when the blow off top is coming. And when you see the price start going to crazy levels, it really does feel like it's never coming back down. And we haven't felt that in a long time in Bitcoin. And with everything playing out, whether it's institutional capital.
Should we pull it up, Opti? Should we pull up the psychology of Wall Street?
I mean, you can, pull it up while I rant a little more.
Yeah, go for it.
I do want to hit one more point, but once the price starts running and you're in Bitcoin, like every morning is like Christmas morning, and you see the price just keep running, and you're like, yo, this is absolutely insane. And seeing your net worth, double and triple, and like you get more, more in a day than people make in a year. Like it starts to literally blow your mind, and your psychology starts, you really start to get rewired, and like, this is absolutely insane. Now, the second part, before you pull up the chart, Nico, that I also want to touch on is what Odell was saying in the end. Like, I know a lot of Bitcoiners are saying that the shitcoin shitcoin season or whatever they want to call it, like it's never going to happen again. I think we're going to see a whole new level of it. Like Odell was saying, we're seeing, Wall Street come into Bitcoin, and the stuff about Vivek and the Bitcoin bonds and Bitwise, I think, buying, Bitcoin standard treasury fund or whatever it was, the wording that they did. Like, it's going to compound, and Wall Street's going to continue to play dumb Wall Street games to essentially try to acquire as many fees as possible. And I think we're entering in a new round of shitcoinery, though it might be on top of Bitcoin, and it's going to obviously be using paper mechanism, traditional financial, accounting to pump these bags. And so, yes, maybe the shitcoin space might not be as pumpy as it used to be, but I think we're going to see a whole new round from Wall Street, because Wall Street can't help themselves. And it's going to be very glorious to see Wall Street get absolutely wrecked trying to play these games with Bitcoin. And like, that's going to be the tiers that I'm going to be most excited for. Really kind of, latching on to what our boy Nolan says all the time on his old show, The Breakup. He just, shouts out to Nolan. He just spun up a new show, which I'm super hyped to watch. Bitcoin is going to fundamentally break Wall Street. And we're going to, in the next 5-10 years, in the Bitcoin industry, or rather the Bitcoin network itself, prove that the people at Wall Street aren't the smartest people in the room. And they're going to continue to do their degeneracy. They're going to get wrecked. There isn't going to be circuit breakers to save them. So we might need one final flush here, and it's going to be with Wall Street. So, I wouldn't be holding shitcoins. Obviously, this is simply Bitcoin, but we know that Wall Street's going to be playing some really degenerate games, and they can't help themselves. And part of that means that they're going to get wrecked. And, when the water recedes, when the tide goes back, we're going to see who isn't wearing pants here. And all of us humble Bitcoiners just stacking, staying solvent, acquiring as much Bitcoin, playing the accumulation games, like we're the ones that are going to win while everyone gets crazy. So back to what I was saying, when you start pricing your net worth in all this crazy fiat games, that's when you should be staying humble and stacking as much Bitcoin as possible, because that's when you're most likely to get wrecked. So I don't think we're out of the woods yet. It's going to be a crazy 5 to 10 years. I think this is going to be a multi-decade generational thing, but hey, we're in it for the long run. Just stay humble, stack sats, stay solvent. This is how we win.
Absolutely. I think that's a really, really good point. I dropped a poll, guys, in the YouTube chat right now. And I'm going to pull this up so we can talk about it. So, guys, at the end of the day, we look, markets, it's psychology, right? It's psychology, and it's just the way it is. And you feel it. You feel this, at the tops. You feel this at the bottoms. You feel the full despair. Let me know where you guys think we are. I dropped it. I said, where are we in the Bitcoin cycle? Are we at disbelief? Are we at hope? Are we at optimism? Are we belief? And I pull up the chart. So it shows you kind of, where everything is, right? There's capitulation, there's anger, there's depression, right? And again, if you've been in Bitcoin long enough, you have felt every single one of these emotions, right? It's all part of it. But I'll tell you what, I do not, Opti, let me ask you, do you feel belief? Have you felt belief yet? I have not felt belief yet.
No.
Optimism, kind of.
Yeah.
Kind of.
I think we're in the hope, and we're about to hit the optimism. It really feels like we're at
but it's
the point where
it's a finicky hope.
Yeah,
it's
I'm starting to
hope.
feel I've yet to see, especially since we haven't broken past 100K, I've yet to feel this rally is real moment. And so I think we're at that consolidation before the optimism pump. So yeah. I would say that's where we're at.
It's like a finicky hope. Let us know in the live chat, guys, what you think. Right now, 57 of you guys, 58 of you guys voted. The vast majority, no, not the vast majority. It's tied between 34% of people think it's hope, 37% of people think it's optimism. So it seems like they agree with us, Opti. It's between the hope and optimism stage. This is where a lot of people think we are. I don't think we're even close to belief. We're not close to thrill. I haven't felt euphoria. I'm basically dead inside, metaphorically. I haven't felt that in a very, very long time, at least since 2021, and it was cut short. 2021 was a big letdown. So, anyways, let us know in the chat where you guys believe we're at. But guys, we're gonna hit the news. We have tons to talk about today. Specifically, the news: Standard Chartered debuts crypto services in Europe with new license. And they talk about offering custody. Now, if you guys don't remember, one of the things that Michael Saylor said needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin was for banks to be able to custody Bitcoin. So it seems like that's moving ahead, full steam ahead. So we're going to cover that news. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the news.
I want to give a very special shout out to our sponsor, Compass Mining. They make Bitcoin mining accessible to everyone, from beginners to experienced investors. Their turnkey miners gets you online and hashing within 48 hours, making it easier than ever to start your mining journey. Plus, with their active marketplace, you can resell your miner at any time, adding flexibility and value to your investment. Visit their website to access a wealth of resources, learning everything you need to know about Bitcoin mining. Take your first step into the world of Bitcoin mining with confidence. Discover more at compassmining.io. Again, compassmining.io and see how Compass Mining can power your success. I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, Foundation. It's self-custody done right. They built a premium grade hardware wallet called Passport right here in the US, and it integrates seamlessly with their free app called Envoy. Passport is fully open source and verifiable. It's the most intuitive Bitcoin wallet designed with a UX reminiscent of a classic feature phone, so you'll know how to navigate it and use it the moment you pick it up. It's also air-gapped, meaning Bitcoin stays offline, never touching an internet connection. It's Bitcoin only, open source verifiable, air-gap security model, gorgeous design craft, premium grade materials. Get your Bitcoin off exchanges and into your own hands in just a few minutes with Passport at foundation.xyz/simply. Get peace of mind.
All right, everybody, here is Opti, and Opti has the Passport by Foundation devices. Not your keys, not your cheese. This is the perfect gift to give to somebody that perhaps is a little bit intimidated by self-custody, but the Passport makes self-custody easy. It doesn't sacrifice safety for convenience. Use promo code SIMPLY to get a small discount to get yourself a Passport by Foundation devices. Scan the QR code or check the link in the video description. Anyways, I have a special treat for you guys other than Opti. I have a video. And essentially, it's the video of Michael Saylor explaining the 3 catalysts that need to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin. Let me put it at 1.2 times the speed because it's a little bit slow. There we go. Let's play it, and then we're going to talk about it.
And then I think there's 3 big. Look, first of all, it's going up by a factor of 10 whether they fix any of the stuff, right? It's going to go. It's going to be a grind up by a factor of 10 just because gold is broken and Bitcoin's going to replace gold. And now everybody in the universe knows they need a non-sovereign store of value in the form of a bearer instrument. So now they're looking, the amount of stories. For last year, people said inflation may be coming. We're not sure. Now the mainstream narrative is flipped to inflation is here. You need an inflation hedge. So it's going to grind up to replace gold. It'll go to $500,000 a coin, regardless of whether they fix these things. But there are 3 things that are massive catalysts that cause an acceleration. And I don't think that those 3 things don't take us to 500,000. They take us to 5 million a coin, right? Those 3 things are a spot ETF where someone can go ahead and buy $100 million of Bitcoin, buy a security, an ETF security. I think that's 1. 2 is your bank is going to custody it for you and lend against it. And 3 is I can mark it up or mark it down on my balance sheet based on fair value. Pari passu. It'll be pari passu to the way I'd handle Apple stock, or at least that good. If you have property with fair value accounting, by the way, it becomes pari passu to the way you'd handle treasury bonds on a treasury balance sheet. Treasuries are better than stocks because treasury is property, whereas a stock is a security, and you're capped out at 40% of your balance sheet as security. So it would be a major breakthrough if you saw any of those 3 things. And I'll end with this one observation. I tweeted this last week, but I think it's very powerful. It's if the banks can hold this stuff on their balance sheet, then a whole new class of investors are going to buy it. People are going to put in billion and multi-billion-dollar orders to buy it as a treasury asset. Nobody's going to sell it because there's no reason to sell it if you can borrow against it at LIBOR plus or SOFR plus 50 basis points. Right, so you'll be borrowing against Bitcoin at SOFR plus 50 or SOFR plus 100 basis points. No one's ever going to sell it, and then, as I joked, you won't be able to afford it. I mean, you will be able to afford it, but everybody gets Bitcoin at the price they deserve. When the banks normalize it, and you can draw a $100 million credit line at 100 basis points from an FDIC insured bank, at that point, right, we're going to blow through the market cap of gold by a factor of 10.
Right.
So I think the best thing is those 3 things are highly likely to happen. I don't know if they happen in 36 months or 24 months or 12 months, but I would be shocked if it's more than 36 months. And I hope, guys, it doesn't happen in 12 months because my view is the longer it takes, the more progressive the grind, the more time I have to buy more of it.
So he was 100%.
Yeah, hey, Nico, what was the date on this? Wasn't this 20?
Dude, it was 2022, bro. Yeah. I wish I brought MicroStrategy. So I don't know what the F I was thinking, dude. Like, come on now. Okay, so let's break it down for anyone. Let's weave it back in. Let's name the 3 points. Number one, changing the FASB accounting rules so that it could properly reflect, on a company's balance sheet, the benefits of Bitcoin accounting wise. Number two, the approval of a spot Bitcoin ETF. And number three, the ability for banks to custody Bitcoin. The first two things have already happened. Those things have already come to fruition. We remember in the beginning of last year, January 10th of 2024.
Literally a year ago.
Or a year ago tomorrow, the approval of the spot Bitcoin ETF. But Gary Gensler was like grinding his teeth in the process. Also, the change in the FASB accounting rules. I'll read you some of the details here. The Financial Accounting Standards Boards issued new accounting rules for crypto assets in December of 2023, which will take effect for fiscal years beginning after December 15th, 2024. So this just came into effect, right? And then the reason I wanted to cover this topic today is Standard Chartered debuts crypto services in Europe with new license. Now it goes on to say Standard Chartered, one of the world's largest banks, is debuting cryptocurrency services in Europe after obtaining a digital asset license in Luxembourg. The bank announced on January 9th that it is establishing a new entity in Luxembourg to act as its European Union regulatory entry point for offering crypto and digital asset custody services. I'm going to say that again. The bank announced on January 9th that it is establishing a new entity in Luxembourg to act as its European Union regulatory entry point for offering crypto and digital asset custody services. So one of the largest banks, the TLDR, one of the largest banks in the world, has just announced today that they're offering custody services. And that was the third thing, the third catalyst that Michael Saylor said needed to happen in order for Bitcoin to hit $5 million per coin and actually 10x the market cap of gold. Now, the reason that this is such a big deal is because, again, banks need to have this ability in order for people to effectively use Bitcoin as collateral. Because at the end of the day, Bitcoin is the best collateral ever on the face of the planet. It's superior to gold. It's superior to real estate. Because its physical characteristics, you could send it anywhere, immediately, anywhere around the world. You can verify the custody of it. You can verify that it's real. Like, imagine verifying gold. Like, how do you verify the authenticity of gold? You have to literally open up the gold bar and make sure that there isn't tungsten inside, right? So, yes, I mean, this is massive. This is huge. And to connect the dots with what Odell was saying earlier on the show when we played you guys that clip, this is what he was talking about. Like, all bets are off when Wall Street and TradFi come in here and they start getting a taste of number go up technology. I think things are going to go absolutely crazy, and they already are going absolutely crazy. So bullish news overall. Standard Chartered Bank announces that they are releasing custody services in Europe with a license, everything checking all the regulatory checkbox. Now, of course, is this good for the revolution? Not necessarily. The revolution individuals taking Bitcoin into self-custody. But regardless, from a number go up perspective, I think this is incredibly, incredibly bullish news. Opti, what's your opinion?
Yeah, well, also, let's not forget that BNY Mellon also got approval in the States. So now we have it on, both sides of the Atlantic that there are banks that are now essentially going to be able to custody that Bitcoin. Now, personally, I would not trust a bank to custody my Bitcoin, but I do understand that for a lot of people out there, they still have some semblance of trust in these institutions. And so that is going to allow for a lot of capital to start to flow into Bitcoin because of these quote, safeguards out there. And so it is obviously very bullish in regards to price. It does seem like Bitcoin is maturing. It's starting to saturate all of TradFi. And, quoting something that I said, I think it was last week or maybe the beginning of this week, is that to have Bitcoin fundamentally take over the world, we do have to use all of the traditional financial technology that is out there. And that's how Bitcoin completely wins. And so as much as a Bitcoiner, I'm a purist where I'm like, you should be holding your Bitcoin in personal custody. I do understand the need for using all of the tools available to us from the traditional financial sector to help proliferate and push the adoption of Bitcoin. So as much as I wouldn't be using banks, obviously this is one of those developments that I've been saying is further proof that Bitcoin is maturing. 2024 seemed to be the year where we put the foundational bricks down so that now, Bitcoin is thoroughly saturating popular culture. And I think 2025, as we do see the price start to run, I think it's going to be very hard to ignore Bitcoin. I really do feel like we're going to see that 2017 type bull run, and the FOMO that we're going to see is kind of going, hearkening back to what Odell was saying in the beginning of the show. Maybe we do see some crazy, 7-figure prices in Bitcoin, even if it's just for a moment. And I do think that retail is going to come back very strong into Bitcoin once all of this FUD is really put to rest. Because as we've been showing, especially on this show today, the powers that be are starting to lose control of not only the economy, but the narrative here. And hey, if it does come out and show that the Biden administration sold all that Bitcoin and yet they're sabotaging a potential to pay back the debt, I think more people are going to wake up. And so, yes, I think this is a great development. Obviously, I'm not the biggest fan of banks, but hey, we knew this was going to happen eventually, but it's still more important than ever for all of us to take Bitcoin into custody, continue to run nodes, etc. But in regards to kind of one thing Odell was also saying in the beginning, I think one of the bigger stories that for us Bitcoiners is old news at this point is just how big of a bad impact, or rather negative impact, the FTX, Sam Bankman-Fried moment had on the industry. And we're still kind of getting out of that. And so, hey, as much as we don't trust banks, there's still people that do trust banks, and I'm sure they'd much rather trust a bank than a SBF character to hold their wealth. So this is seemingly a good development in the Bitcoin space. I'm sure we will see some other banks follow soon, or maybe the powers that be are picking winners and choosers still. But it's looking like, in 11 days, we will see some clarity. Obviously, it won't happen day one here. But I think if Trump is able to get into office first and foremost, we'll see some crazy stuff happen right now, especially when you consider what's going on in the macro landscape. The treasuries aren't looking very strong right now, and people are trying to move away from treasuries. So people are looking for an alternative. And I know a lot of people, we even have people in the chat that say it all the time. It's like, oh, we're going back to a gold standard. And it's like, okay, bro, like I happening. And to me, it's going to go to Bitcoin. So, hey, you can make your bet and go into gold and keep your purchasing power level for, the next 20 years if you want, or you can follow the wave. And remember the report from Fidelity. Obviously now Fidelity is kind of like a Bitcoin company now. They have the whole digital asset wing. So maybe it is a little biased, but I really like the part of the report where it says, like, yeah, you're not late to Bitcoin, you're just early to a new era, and this is where we are right now. So hey, have fun with your pet rock, aka a yellow rock, and we'll have fun playing with our Bitcoin. So hey, the bets are on. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Opti's on effing fire today. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. We have a lot to cover. We'll be right back. We're going to hit the culture. I don't even know what Opti's going to cover today, so I'm excited.
Yeah, I got some.
I want to give a shout out to our sponsor, HIVE Digital Technologies. As the first ever public miner, HIVE's been battle tested through every possible market. And as the first with an AI strategy, HIVE continues to redefine the future of sustainable energy. Also, gotta casually drop this in here, HIVE consistently tops the industry in Bitcoin mined per exahash. They're lean and mean, they're green and clean, and they're changing the game. Learn more by following them at HIVE Digital Tech or check out their website, hivedigitaltech.com.
I totally just cut Opti off. I apologize.
It's all good. I was just gonna tease it.
He cuts me off all the time. So
Wait. Speaking of.
Sorry, not sorry. Guys, I do want to give a very special shout out to Simply Bitcoin's sponsor, BitBlockBoom. Guys, this is going to be one of the best Bitcoin conferences of the effing year. It's going to be amazing. The year of the parabola. You guys definitely don't want to miss BitBlockBoom in Dallas, Texas, April 3rd through the 6th of 2025. You want to get your tickets quickly because the prices do go up very, very soon. Guys, this is going to be one of the best Bitcoin celebrations of the year. They have the barbecue, they have the axe throwing contest, they have the brunch, they have the lunch, they have the dinner, they have the workshops, they have the conference days. It's going to be absolutely amazing. Guys, you definitely don't want to miss BitBlockBoom 2025 in Dallas, Texas. It's going to be one of the best Bitcoin celebrations of the year. The entire Simply Bitcoin crew is going to be there. Nico, Opti, Rustin, Dante, Jacob, Sophie, the entire crew. You definitely don't want to miss this Bitcoin celebration. Get your tickets now. Scan the QR code on your screen or check the link in the video description. Scan the QR code and use promo code BBB21, BBB21 to get $100 off of your tickets to BitBlockBoom 2025. All right, everybody. Opti, what do you have for us?
Let's not pull this up yet.
What do you have for us today?
Yeah, so shout out to Weinekes. He's trolling us in the chat. Shouts out to you, bro. I'm cracking up. Okay, guys. Well, look, it's the new year. You know, we're in 2025. We haven't had a chance to kind of talk about, you know, not like self-helpy here, but some goals for 2025. Obviously, everyone likes to set goals for 2025. And so today, shouts out to my boy Mitchell Hoddle, a Zoomer out there, absolute go. I love his work, and I'm really going to just kind of steal his ideas here. So I'm crediting Mitchell Hoddle here completely on today's culture, but I think it's a great framework considering that every Bitcoiner has these stacking goals. We all want a stacking goal, you know, and as the price starts running, I think it's very important to I wouldn't say be realistic because I want you guys to strive for excellence, strive for vitality, you know, with some willpower, get to your goals. And obviously the goal we've always been talking about here for a long time on Simply Bitcoin is just try to acquire one Bitcoin. And when Nico and I kind of got into Bitcoin, we had our boy American Hoddle being like, get to 6.15 Bitcoin. And that was out of the reach for a lot of people. And so shouts out to Mitchell Hoddle. I'm gonna pull up his tweet now because he is, I think might be hitting on a trend here. So again, at Mitchell Hoddle on Twitter, I'm going to read his tweet and then we'll kind of talk about it. Considering we are in the new year, people are setting New Year's goals. I'm sure as a Bitcoiner, you're setting stacking goals and you should be thinking about your finances moving into 2025 and make sure that you stick to these because as the price of Bitcoin gets crazy, we want you guys to stay solvent, stay humble, stack sats, all that good thing. Anyways, Mitchell Hoddle isn't the only one thinking about this, but he is able to put this in this tweet that I think is really great. So I'm gonna jump off the work here from Mitchell Hoddle. All credits to Mitchell. He goes, I've been thinking about this a lot recently. How much Bitcoin is enough? Of course, American Hoddle in our day called for 6.15. British Hoddle all of last year was calling for 1 Bitcoin. Now, for most people, the 6.15 train is probably gone, including a lot of single-digit millionaire boomers out there. So getting to 1 Bitcoin is still possible for the paper wealthy boomers if they're willing to like HELOC or take an early withdrawal penalty on the retirement account. But if they haven't already begun stacking by now, they are likely too much of a coward to run off the TradFi plantation in such a big way. So it begs the question, what should the universal stacking goal be for the class of 2025? Obviously, it's a new class, a new era. More people are going to join in the Bitcoin. And if you start saying, you know, get the 6.15 or 1 Bitcoin, maybe it turns people off. But personally, that makes me want to stack more Bitcoin. And that's the whole point here. So what if you're a young person just starting your career? What if you haven't had decades to accumulate assets that could be reallocated to Bitcoin? What if you work a, quote, normal job, have bills to pay, kids to feed, and minimal surplus income? If you just got Bitcoin within the last year, stacking 100 million sats, 1 whole Bitcoin is an impossible task if you're starting from zero, especially especially as this thing continues to run up, which we expect it to do this year in 2025. So what are you to do? And this is, I think, the crazy part, where as the longer you are in Bitcoin, the more you realize that the stack you have currently might be an astronomical amount of wealth moving forward. And so Mitchell Hoddle's putting, speculating here. And so what's the new number? What number should you try to acquire in Bitcoin if you are new to Bitcoin? And he says just 0.33 Bitcoin or 33 million sats or a third of a coin. At 100K Bitcoin, this is roughly $33,000 worth of Bitcoin. And the median net worth for an American in their 30s is about $35,000. So safe to assume most of that isn't liquid, but boldly assuming they have 10K lying around, they could smash by and get themselves their first 10 million sats or 0.1 Bitcoin or a tenth of a coin. And if they bring in 45K a year after tax and aggressively stack with half of their income, they should be able to claw their way to a 33 million sats or a third of a Bitcoin over the next few years as the Bitcoin price rips higher into the six-figure territory. Now, this is where the interesting stuff happens. Let's do some napkin math. There's going to be, essentially a hard cap of 21 million Bitcoin. But when you look at how much lost Bitcoin is out there, how much Bitcoin is held in strong hands, the math starts getting crazy. So there's a million Bitcoin, which is the Satoshi coins. There's roughly about 5 million Bitcoin that are lost, and that might be a lowball estimate. And then there's 5 million Bitcoin that are perma-hodled, which is, in strong hands. Now you're down to about 10 million Bitcoin. Now the US government has 200,000, maybe it's less now. China has about, I forget what the number is, like 175,000 Bitcoin. So I expect Trump will pad an SBR up to a nice clean 1 million, but we'll go with this for now. So that's still speculation, but 500,000 for MicroStrategy, 1.1 million Bitcoin in the ETFs, and obviously those keep climbing. So now we're looking at roughly maybe 8.2 million Bitcoin that are realistically available. So for 8 billion people on the earth to compete for 8.2 million Bitcoin, that's about 0.001 Bitcoin, which is 100,000 sats. So the math starts going down. You're like, yo, this is getting crazy. So having a third of a Bitcoin will put you more than 300 times above the average. And moreover, if we reach sat dime parity in real terms, this would be $3.3 million in purchasing power, enough for a modest retirement. Now, the point is, try to get as many sats as possible. But if you're young, if you're a new listener, if you're, barely getting into Bitcoin, dipping your toes into Bitcoin, maybe a third of a Bitcoin is a decent goal for 2025. Now, of course, we highly recommend that you just try to stack as much Bitcoin as possible. This is the goal. I really do think we should strive for excellence here. So if you do have the possibility of getting to 1 Bitcoin, maybe you don't do it all in 1 year. Maybe that's over, a lifetime. Maybe that's in the next bear market. Who knows what's going on? But while I was kind of thinking about this, obviously it's 2025. People are setting their goals. Usually their goals are like go to the gym, get fit, which I was trolling Nico about earlier. But there should be financial goals right now. And I think we all need to set some financial goals. And I think if you're new here, a third of a Bitcoin might be it might be something you can do. And again, while I was thinking about this, I was kind of inspired by Nico's story. Not to dox Nico's story the whole time. Nico's talked about it a lot. But in 2016, when Nico got into Bitcoin, basically starting from zero, sleeping on friends' couches, doing whatever he can to stack Bitcoin. If you're a young buck, maybe under 30, maybe if you're hitting 30, you shouldn't probably do this, but like in your mid-20s, maybe you should be doing something similar. Like, it might not be glorious right now, but like moving in with your parents, living on your friend's couch, stacking as much Bitcoin as possible, taking on a second job, door dashing, Ubering, whatever you got to do right now. It's not the time to take the foot off. You take your foot off the gas pedal, because even when I got it in 2017, and I'm sure Nico feels the same way, like, we did as much as we could at the moment, but in hindsight, we're still thinking like, man, I could have probably gone harder. Like, I could have definitely gone harder. And so for everyone out there, it's really just, this is one of those moments where I want you guys to strive for excellence. So it doesn't matter what your holdings are right now. This isn't about, pocket watching other Bitcoiners. This is about your personal finances. What can you accomplish in 2025? And where is your stack right now? And how much are you willing to sacrifice to live a better life in 5 to 10 years? And I think we should all continue to do this, even if we do have Bitcoin already, even if we have a decent stack and we're okay with our stack. I think we should all kind of focus on, let's get our cash flow up for 2025. Let's make sure that the Simply Bitcoin audience out there is the richest audience, period. And we are at the peak of excellence, a peak of human excellence here. So I don't know. I'm going to give all of the credit to Mitchell Hodl. Shouts out to him. I'm kind of just jumping off the back of his work. I'm basically stealing his work here today, but I was thinking about this exact thing and like, okay, it's 2025. Maybe, we got to put the gas or put your foot on the pedal and try to stack as much as possible, get our cash flows up. Maybe there's a chance for us to acquire more Bitcoin than we thought if we do enter a bear market. If we just do a slow grind up forever, then just do what you can. But if 2025 is a crazy parabolic year and we do return to maybe this level or the mid 6 figures, I just don't want you guys to feel like you could have done more. This is a time where you can change literally the trajectory of your entire bloodline. Take this moment very seriously. This is a very important moment in the history of humanity, and you're on the front lines, man. Let's not be okay with being average here at Simply Bitcoin. Keep stacking. It's very interesting, Nico, and this is where I'll pass it off to you. It is so interesting, and we always do the how much Bitcoin do you need to retire one? You guys yell at us constantly, but it is interesting.
You guys love that episode. It gets numbers every time,
and it's funny how the number just keeps going down. Like 6.15 was attainable for a lot of us in 2017. 1 Bitcoin was attainable for a lot of us going up into 2025. Now we're seeing 2025 like with 100K Bitcoin. 100K is a lot of money for many people, especially when you consider the average, the national average in the US in particular, which is one of the wealthiest nations in the world. Most people barely have $10,000 saved. Most people can barely pay for a $400 emergency. So savings is how you basically secure and make society more prosperous, guys. Do not get caught in these memes of like, oh, you're hoarding these Bitcoins, you're a bad person. It's like, no, savings is how we built society. Continue to save, double down on your saving, make some sacrifices this year, and keep stacking. Anyways, I'm done ranting. I feel good. New Year's, I'm feeling, Nico, I told you this morning, I'm like jacked up this more than usual today. And I only drank 2 cups of coffee. So I don't know. I'm got a new supplement regimen. Your boy's fired up today. But Nico, what's his thoughts? Mitchell Hodl, 33 million sats, a third of a Bitcoin. It seems like our goals here as stackers are just slowly but surely going down because, hey, Jeff Booth meme here, like as Bitcoin goes up, the world should get cheaper. And if you're living on the Bitcoin standard, your life gets cheaper. It's such a life hack. It's absolutely incredible. Woo.
Yeah. So, I mean, first of all, you absolutely crushed it. And I think it's important to kind of zoom out when in doubt, right? Like when I got into Bitcoin, I felt like I was really late. I think the first coin I got was like at $700 or something like that. Or roughly around that area. And I knew people that got Bitcoin and it was like $100 or like $10. And I felt like I was super late. But at the time, I was somewhat young. I was like 22, 23, 24, around that age group. And I remember I did everything in my power to accumulate as much Bitcoin as humanly possible. So like I was putting like 80% of my income into Bitcoin. And I really didn't do it for revolutionary reasons or whatever. I did it because I was desperate and I hated my situation. And I did that for really like wake up in sweats, like thinking about, what can I do? I was working in real estate. I was doing like basically everything in my power to like figure out, how to mine more fiat so I could buy more Bitcoin. And, looking back, it was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my life, financially. And, I got so much outside pressure at the time. It was like, go back to school, or like do this job, or like work the corporate ladder, and like all that stuff. But I don't know what it was. I was like, Bitcoin is my way out. Right. And I still think that same opportunity exists today. If you're a young buck, like if you're just starting out, you're hungry, you're in your 20s, early 20s, mid 20s. And, again, this is my 9th year. Holy shit.
Dude, boomer confirmed.
Like 9 years, dude. Like, God damn. It's pretty crazy, but when I started, I was broke. Like I was not in a good place. And I just kept going. I just put my head down and I acquired as much Bitcoin as possible. And if we're right about Bitcoin, if this thing's going at $10 million per coin, in 21 years, like 0.33 Bitcoin, what Opti is saying, that's $3.3 million, right? It's more money than most people will ever acquire in their entirety of their lives. So I think that's something to keep in mind. And I hope that, like, if you're just getting in, if this is your first cycle, perhaps this is your second cycle. What I always tell people is it takes 2 cycles to succeed in Bitcoin. And the reason I say that is because, like, the first cycle, you're probably going to get wrecked, like more than likely. And then the second, but at the end of the first cycle, so like 4 years, you're going to realize you made a good decision. And then the second cycle, full cycle, you're going to be relatively wealthier compared to the people around you, compared to where they're started. Because remember, they're on a fiat standard. And third cycle, I don't know, I'm not there yet, so I'll let you know how that ends up. But yeah, like that's the advice that I give to people is, like, plan for the long term. It takes 2 cycles in Bitcoin to really break free, to really be in a better financial situation compared to where you started. You don't need tons of capital. You don't need whatever. You just need to work hard and save in Bitcoin. Like that extra dinner or that extra trip could just, like, you don't need it. Like just put your head down, work, save in Bitcoin, and things just get progressively better over time. But it's not a get rich quick scheme. It's not going to make you absurdly wealthy overnight or like whatever. That's why the altcoins have so much appeal, because of their volatility. But it's a very sure bet to live a very prosperous life if you have like kind of like long-term thinking, right? So yeah, that's what I would say. Like Bitcoin is hope. And if you are older, you've probably had more time to accumulate wealth. So it's not so much a matter of building from zero, but it's a matter of reallocating your wealth to Bitcoin, because more than likely Bitcoin is going to outperform any other investment asset, maybe except for MicroStrategy.
No, buy Bitcoin. Stop being a fiat maxing, Nico.
So, yeah, that's my advice. That's my advice. And, I'm very confident that, very confident that if you're starting now, you're a young person or you're an older person, you have wealth, you start saving in Bitcoin, reallocating those resources to Bitcoin. You start now. In 4 years, you're going to call me or you're going to text me and you're going to be like, dude, great. That was fabulous. In 8 years, you're going to be like, Nico, you're a genius. And I'm going to say, no, I'm not a genius. This is Bitcoin. That's what Bitcoin does. Anyways, guys, if you guys enjoyed the show, make sure to smash that like button. Subscribe if you feel like we provided you value. And of course, we'll be back tomorrow for a brand new episode of Simply Bitcoin Live. Opti is going to be in the host seat with Chris Alamo tomorrow, so you guys are going to enjoy the show. I'll see you guys on Monday. Love you all. I'll see you guys on the next episode of SBL. Peace out, everybody.
Today's episode was brought to you by BitcoinWell.com, a Bitcoin-only platform on a mission to enable financial independence.